At exactly 0232 hours, the Strait of Hormuz, a 5.4-kilometer wide artery through which 20% of the world's oil flows. On the radar screen of the USS Tripoli, a red dot appears. It vanishes. 3 seconds later, it returns. Doubled, tripled. Then a dozen signals launch in direct formation toward the ship's hull, and then absolute silence. The screens go black again. No interceptor missiles. No columns of smoke. No steel debris floating in the Persian Gulf. Hours later, the IRGC makes an explosive announcement before international media. They have struck the Tripoli and forced it to retreat. But commercial satellites show something different. The USS Tripoli LHA-7 remains exactly where it was, its 4,500 tons of steel cutting through the dark waters of the strait, impassive as if nothing had happened. So what did Iran destroy that night? The answer is more disturbing than any real explosion. They destroyed their own tactical credibility, and they don't even know it yet. This is the story of how the U.S. Navy turned the most elaborate trap of the 21st century into its own electronic funeral. The Strait of Hormuz is not just water. It is an economic nuclear trigger. If closed for 72 hours, global markets collapse. Iran knows it. And that night, Tehran decided to pull that trigger. Operation True Promise 4 was not born of impulsivity. It was the result of months of strategic calculus designed to prove to the world that the U.S. Navy is vulnerable in closed waters. A successful strike against the Tripoli would be not just military, it would be a geopolitical earthquake, redefining the balance of power across the Middle East. The board was set long before the Tripoli entered the strait. The IRGC had deployed its asymmetric warfare architecture with surgical precision. In the rocky hills of Bandar Abbas batteries of Noor, anti-ship missiles, the Iranian version of the Chinese Exocet with a 170 kilometers range and sea-skimming flight pointed toward the navigation corridor. High-power jammers stood ready to flood every American frequency simultaneously. Black-painted Shahed drones waited in underground hangars. Iran had reason to feel confident in previous exercises. Its gray zone warfare systems had managed to saturate conventional defenses. They believed they had found the Aegis blind spot. What they did not calculate was what sailed with the Tripoli. At 0235 hours, the IRGC activates the first phase of True Promise 4. From electronic warfare stations in Bandar Abbas, high-power jammers begin flooding the electromagnetic spectrum, with false signals, fictitious attack vectors appearing simultaneously across every Aegis screen in the fleet. This is not random noise, it is calculated chaos engineering. The Tripoli's automated defense systems begin processing dozens of phantom threats, moving with the perfect physics of real missiles. In the combat room, radar operators watch the screens fill with targets that teleport, vanish, and multiply. The Aegis system, the god brain of the American fleet capable of tracking 900 simultaneous targets, is being pushed to its limits by pure saturation of false data. The real danger is not that the missiles hit, it is that Aegis fires on its own against its own allies. In the strait, dozens of civilian tankers sail less than 8 kilometers from the fleet. One automated identification error and the next day's headlines would not speak of war, they would speak of massacre. At 0238 hours. From camouflaged cliffs, a swarm of low radar signature Shahed drones launches into the darkness. They are not conventional flying bombs. They are ghosts designed to dissolve into radar background noise, hiding a darker intent to force the Tripoli to reveal its defensive response patterns. On the deck of the USS Tripoli, the night air is shattered by the roar of engines. A squadron of F-35B Lightning II executes short takeoff runs. They are not going to attack, they are going to see. In this game of electronic shadows, vision is everything. The pilots activate the F-35B sensor fusion system, integrating real-time data from the Arleigh Burke destroyers via Link 16 network. When conventional radar is blinded, they switch to the electro-optical targeting system thermal sensors that see through electronic fog as if it were daylight. It is like having X-ray vision in a sandstorm. At 0241 hours, the first F-35B pilot launches a salvo of AIM 120 AMRAAM missiles, Mach 4 160 kilometers range straight into the Shahed swarm. The sky lights up with incandescent white streaks. The Iranian drones become titanium confetti falling over the Persian Gulf. In the Tripoli's combat room, a brief instant of relief washes over the operators. Fatal error. The IRGC's electronic warfare units had been waiting for hours for exactly that moment of overconfidence. What would you do at this moment? If you were the Tripoli's commander, would you A, keep the F-35Bs airborne to continue the hunt, or B, bring them back to conserve munitions? Comment below. At 0243 hours, the Aegis screens were not flickering, they were bleeding. In less than 90 seconds, dozens of new targets emerged from nowhere, replicating with millimetric precision the flight physics of real anti-ship missiles, sea-skimming trajectories, subsonic speeds, authentic radar signatures, but with one disturbing detail: a 3-second delay in their behavior, as if reality and simulation were slightly out of sync. The operators detected it, but detecting it was not enough, because among those digital phantoms were real threats moving at 900 feet per second. And distinguishing one from another in real time with human lives at stake is the hardest problem in modern naval combat. It is like trying to separate live bullets from blanks while they fly at your face. The fleet was paralyzed by informational doubt, a void where automated systems were one click away from firing on their own AI escort ships. At 0245 hours, the IRGC capitalized on that second of tactical hesitation to launch the main blow. From mobile launchers camouflaged on the Iranian coast, a volley of Noor anti-ship missiles Mach 0.88 sea-skimming at 5 meters above the wave crests launched in saturation formation. Their tactic hide in the radar diffraction zone, where Earth's curvature and sea spray make conventional detection nearly impossible. Simultaneously, long-range Qader cruise missiles executed complex evasive maneuvers, attacking from unexpected angles to force Aegis to monitor 360 degrees at once. The airspace over the Strait of Hormuz ceased to be open sky. It became a wall of steel and explosives. At 0247 hours, the Arleigh Burke destroyers responded with a volcanic eruption of SM-6 interceptor missiles, 240 kilometers range, capable of downing targets at Mach 3.5, fired from vertical launch tubes in a frantic effort to thin the enemy swarm. High above the F-35Bs became forward data nodes, guiding the fleet's fire from positions invisible to Iranian radar. Their cockpits rang with continuous target lock alerts as the pilots operated at the edge of human endurance. But the sheer volume of the Iranian attack began to create a lethal fog of war. At 0248 hours, an Iranian decoy drone emitting exactly the electronic signature of a high-value Qader missile achieved a fleeting but terrifying breakthrough. An F-35B pilot, blinded by the intensity of electronic jamming, fell into a false lock onto the Phantom. He realized the deception only when his thumb was already on the trigger. A second wasted. A breach opened. A Noor missile, shielded by sea spray and electronic chaos, slipped between the outer interceptor layers, 8 kilometers from the Tripoli's hull, then 6, then 4. The ship's superstructure trembled as the CIWS phalanx system, the 20mm Vulcan cannon firing 4500 rounds per minute, the ocean's most lethal R2D2, spun its barrel with a mechanical screech that froze the blood of every sailor aboard. The Noor missile was torn apart 900 meters from the hull. An orange fireball bathed the Tripoli's deck in an infernal glow. The fleet had held, but it was breathing hard with ammunition at the limit, completely unaware that a silent cold death was approaching from 200 meters beneath their feet. Do you think the Aegis system can withstand a second saturation wave like this? If you think yes, comment iron. If you think no, comment trap. At 0251 hours, the aerial duel had been a smokescreen. At 200 meters depth, the real executioners were already in position. 2 IRGC Ghadir-class mini-submarines had been motionless on the seabed for hours, engines off, acoustically fused with the underwater terrain. Invisible to active sonar, patient as snakes in the dark. In absolute silence, the crews launched JASC, 2 cruise missiles from torpedo tubes. Waterproof capsules ascended slowly toward the surface without activating any propulsion system. Only upon breaking surface tension did they ignite their engines. A short-range ambush, Aegis received no warning. Meanwhile, beneath the Tripoli's hull, a field of smart mines had been seeded silently hours earlier, activated by pressure sensors, calibrated exactly for the ship's 45,000-ton displacement. Not for any ship, for that specific ship. The perfect trap had 2 jaws, missiles from behind, mines from ahead. At 0253 hours, 5 nautical miles off the Tripoli's bow, the Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine detected the death signal. Its sonar array caught a cold, unmistakable metallic click, the acoustic signature of the outer hatch of the Ghadir's torpedo tube opening. Without hesitation, the Virginia maneuvered toward the firing vector and launched an Mk-48 ADCAP torpedo capable of pursuing targets at 55 knots at depths of 800 meters. Simultaneously, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter switched to emergency dipping cycle mode, dropping sonobuoys that wove a multi-static acoustic net around the Ghadir's position. The hunt had ceased to be silent. It was a high-speed race for survival. At 0255 hours, the Tripoli's bridge erupted into combat nightmare. Integrated data revealed the minefield directly inside the ship's anticipated turning radius. The 45,000-ton behemoth was trapped in a deadly press jask, 2 missiles emerging from the stern, pressure-activated mines waiting beneath the bow. At full reverse power, the bridge plates vibrated violently as the Tripoli's propellers churned a furious white foam, fighting the momentum of 20 knots. The ship banked sharply to port, its hull groaning under centrifugal force, dodging the first activated mine by mere meters. At 0257 hours, Iran executed the total frequency blackout. The electronic warfare stations at Bandar Abbas, having patiently waited for the Tripoli to enter the minefield, raised their power to maximum. High-intensity GPS spoofing virtually relocated the Tripoli several kilometers inland into Iranian territory. Navigation screens showed the ship sailing over desert mountains. No GPS, no clean radar, no reliable coordinates. The CIWS turrets automatically lost their target lock, unable to distinguish mines from sea spray. The American giant was paralyzed mid-emergency maneuver, drifting blindly toward the center of the minefield. The board was perfectly set for Iran. At this moment, the most elaborate trap of modern gray zone warfare was seconds away from snapping shut. At 0259 hours, at 3,000 feet altitude, 2 dark silhouettes had been waiting in silence since the start of combat. The EA-18G Growler, the digital gods of U.S. Navy electronic warfare, had operated in cold mode throughout the battle, without emitting a single signal, recording, analyzing, cataloging every Iranian jamming frequency with surgical precision, like predators studying their prey before striking. Now it was their turn. The pilots activated the NGJ-MB system next-generation jammer midband and aimed concentrated beams of electromagnetic energy directly at the radar towers in Bandar Abbas. This was not scattered jamming. It was a digital lobotomy, an electromagnetic scalpel designed to sever the central nervous system of Iran's entire electronic warfare network. Simultaneously, 2 AGM, 8AE AARGM missiles, anti-radiation missiles that actively hunt enemy radar emissions like electronic hounds, launched toward the jamming sources at Mach 2. In less than 30 seconds, Iran's entire coastal network fell silent. Screens in Bandar Abbas turned absolute black. Communications between IRGC units collapsed. Missile guidance systems lost their master signal. The Ghadir mini-submarines, now blind and uncoordinated, became static targets for the Mk-48 ADCAP, hunting them from below. Iran had shown all its cards. The U.S. Navy answered with a royal flush. At 0301 hours, the digital fog dissipated as fast as it had come. The Tripoli recovered its independent inertial navigation, revealing the minefield meters from its bow. The Arleigh Burke destroyers switched to high-resolution infrared sensors, identifying each mine with millimetric precision. The Seahawk helicopters marked the targets with dedicated detection laser, coordinating with the ship's guns to detonate them one by one. Each salvo created a violent underwater explosion. The Iranian minefield, months of planning, millions of dollars in resources, was eliminated in minutes. The IRGC's pride had been crushed by the overwhelming technological superiority of the West, not with more fire, with faster, cleaner, deadlier information. At 0315 hours, the USS Tripoli did not retreat. It held its position like a steel fortress in the Strait of Hormuz. The F-35Bs landed vertically on deck, while squadrons of MV-22 Osprey took off on patrol hunting the last IRGC speedboats. Beneath the surface, the Virginia completed its mission and vanished silently into the depths as if it had never existed. The final balance was brutal in its asymmetry. Iran deployed its full asymmetric warfare architecture: coastal jammers, Shahed drones, saturation missiles, mini-submarines, minefield, and GPS, spoofing an investment of months of planning and hundreds of millions of dollars. They managed to penetrate outer defense layers, briefly paralyze the Tripoli's navigation, and force the CIWS to its operational limit. But they sank nothing. The United States lost ammunition time and maneuvering margin. It gained something more valuable: real data on every frequency, every tactic, and every blind spot of the Iranian system intelligence, worth more than any missile. The strategic lesson is simple and devastating in modern warfare. The winner is not who fires more. The winner is who processes information faster under maximum pressure. Which Iranian tactic did you find most dangerous tonight? The minefield, the mini-submarines, or the GPS spoofing? Tell us in the comments. If this analysis opened your eyes to modern electronic warfare, hit like and subscribe. Tap the bell, because the next time Iran pulls that trigger, we will be here to explain exactly what happened before the media understands it. Sensors are active, the board is set. See you on the next deck. This scenario is a tactical simulation based on publicly documented military capabilities. It does not represent real events.